In the Perspectrum podcast, we discuss controversial topics. Outside of this context, Michael and I are both working professionals. While doing the show, we are not acting as agents or representatives of our respective institutions, and none of the views that we express reflect the outlooks of our employers. So don't come to my office and throw toilet paper at me.
And I don't have an office, but don't come to my cube. Hello and welcome to the Perspectrum. I'm Michael Bloom.
I'm Nathan Seelove.
And I'm Gerry DeViller.
Yes.
We have a special guest on this show, and we are super lucky to have Gerry on the show, host of It's Another Sunday podcast, and someone that we've been interacting with for a while. We've been on his show, and this is, I think, Gerry's first time on the Perspectrum. So welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah.
It is an honor.
We are super excited to have you on the show, and it's going to be a little bit of an unconventional format today. We're basically, the three of us are going to attempt to tackle one of the toughest questions in politics right now. We're going to be talking through Joe Biden and what the fuck he should do about being president or not, whether he should continue to run, our experience watching the debate. We'll be talking through the Democratic Party response, and our overall perspective, because ultimately, no one on the show wants Donald Trump to become president, and the question is, how do we keep that from happening? How do we make our best bet? So,
yeah, and it is quite possible that there will be some disagreements, and we like it when disagreements happen on the show. Michael and I even disagree on very rare occasions.
Yeah,
so it's always fun.
Yeah, totally.
Before we get started with that, I think it is also important to address another issue on a very serious note, and that is, of course, the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. We on this show have always been very clear about how we feel about political violence, and that is that it must be condemned in all of its forms. We have probably made it clear on this pod that we're not huge fans of Donald Trump. We have made it clear that we do think that his policies and his politics and his temperament would be a danger to the presidency were he to get reelected. But the fact of the matter is, we live in a democracy. We live in a democratic republic, despite what the Supreme Court may be trying to do to get rid of that republic part. And that's how we want it to stay. Which means that when we have disagreements, we settle them with elections and debate. Now, that doesn't mean that some of those disagreements might not have really high stakes. Many of the disagreements that we have include having lives on the line. But this is not how we settle our differences. Now, there's definitely some speculation as to whether or not the attack was politically motivated. Now, on the surface, it seems like it's politically motivated. Whenever you try to kill a president, there has to be politics involved. But there's also some evidence from the guy's search history that apparently he was actually looking into events from Joe Biden as well, and that he might have just been some lone gun nut dude that wanted to kill somebody that was high profile, and Trump just so happened to be the closest person doing a rally closest to him. That might be true. I don't know. But
yeah,
regardless.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll talk more about it as the situation develops. I'm sure we'll talk through this in the future. But yeah, to Nathan's point, there's just no place for political violence or really violence of any kind in our politics and our discourse. It just doesn't, there's no place where it belongs.
Yeah. The irony is also not lost on me that there has been a very consistent condemnation of political violence among the mainstream media and Democrats and Republicans alike, when we are still actively funding and arming a genocide in Gaza. So I'd just like to throw out the fact that we continue to prop up authoritarians and people with violent ideologies around the world. We continue to give weapons to regimes such as Saudi Arabia and the current Israeli government, and yet, we all seem to agree that political violence is wrong. So I just want to also throw out there, let's make it more consistent. Let's make our condemnations of political violence more consistent, because we want to live in a world where our differences are settled with systems that encourage justice, debate, arguments, and not violence.
Yeah. Okay. That is so far from what we're here to talk about with Gerry.
Yes.
That we should probably get into it. So first off, I'd love to hear, I think we should place ourselves, to start off the conversation, in the experience that we had just a few weeks ago following the first presidential debate. Just because I think, like, ultimately that's where so much of this conversation started.
Yeah.
Prior to that,
Yeah.
I think the majority of Americans had concerns about Biden's age, but largely speaking, those concerns were kind of forward-looking. Does Biden have the capacity to do 4 more years as president? Things like that. Is he going to be the most effective president possible? And then I think this conversation really came to a head when we kind of observed the debate with Trump. And so, Gerry, I'd love to bring you back to your experience watching that debate. Nathan and I obviously did a fucking hour and a half on it. So we've talked plenty about it, but I'd love to hear how you reacted when you observed that.
Well, first of all, guys, again, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I love this podcast. I'm proud to be a supporter. I think I said in the past privately, 99% of what you guys talk about, I love, and I absolutely agree with. This is one I don't, and that's kind of why we're here.
Yeah.
If we can take it back just prior to the debate, well, let me first say, I wish I didn't have to make a choice between either of these two guys, right?
Yeah.
But that's the choice as of today that we have to make between one or the other. And I can tell you, Trump is not on my list of people to vote for. I don't care who is on the other side, within reason, I guess.
Within reason.
But it'll never be Donald Trump.
Sure.
And listening to previous episodes that you guys did, you talked about Biden needs to be president again because we had all this stuff with Donald Trump talking about Project 2025 and all these other crazy ideas that he had.
Yeah.
And then came, in my 6 decades on this planet, the worst debate I have ever seen in my life. I could have done a better job debating, and I don't know how to debate, right? That was horrible. But immediately after that, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I think you did the show the night of. I think you did this Stephen Colbert live right after the thing.
Yep.
And
10 minutes after the debate ended, we sat down and we started that episode.
Totally. And I was really hoping to be wrong.
Yeah.
20 minutes after we had released the episode,
that was, I had to strap myself into my chair and have an air sick bag next to me watching that debate. It was horrible. Okay.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump, as much as he lied his ass off, he won that debate.
Mm-hmm.
However, the immediate panic that started is what started to concern me. Now, I was certainly concerned, about the age of both of these guys, especially Joe Biden, going into this, and does he have the capability to continue on for another term or not? And then I saw the debate, and probably a flash in my head would have agreed with you guys, man, we can't do this. But then it started to become like this breaking news. What the hell happened? Biden was asleep. He forgot to take it Viagra. Whatever the hell it was that was going on, everyone's calling for this guy to step down. And I'm like, I think there's 9 weeks, or 16 weeks until the election. And I'm hearing all over the news, newspapers, work, water coolers, the whole 9 yards, Biden has to go. He has to drop out of this campaign. And so I grew up always thinking that the Democratic Party was the party of panic, that we panic about everything. And my question to everybody, including the news media, was, if not Biden, who can we put up in the next 16 weeks that could beat Donald Trump? I have not seen anybody give me that answer.
And my answer would be a ham sandwich.
That's what you said.
Except, what about the vegetarian vote, Nathan? You're forgetting.
You fucking
sorry,
boy.
Sorry, Jerry. I didn't mean to say that joke while you're taking a sip. No, but I totally get that. And honestly, like, in the moments after the debate and while we were doing that episode, I think I largely stand by that episode. I think,
yeah.
But it was a reaction. And like in the moments after that, I was panicked. I mean, to be fair, like, I think I went from Biden's old but concerns are overblown, and like he's really doing fine. He's older and that's okay, but like he's just old.
Yeah.
Prior to the debate. The debate really changed my perspective, and I think it has only been confirmed since the debate that I think this perspective is right, which is that it's not just that he's old. Like, we call it out all the time that Trump is like just a couple of years younger than him. And yet, Americans regularly think Biden is too old and not up to the job when you poll them on this. And they think Trump is despicable, but they don't think he's impaired in that way. And I don't think it's just his age as a number. That debate, I think, really for me, and I assume for a lot of people, was a totally different side of Biden that made me question whether he is up to this job of campaigning. And I think, like, the other thing I would say is I would, as I just mentioned, I would love to have been wrong in the days and weeks following the debate. I feel like he's done jack shit to actually successfully convince people otherwise. And not to blame him. Maybe he doesn't have that capacity, but if it's like I see interviews with him. He was like a week before he did anything substantive after the debate. Like, I would expect an all hands on deck, Biden at the ready. Like, if he were able to, I would expect him to be full court press to combat this narrative. And I think it's even more of a condemnation than just the debate performance itself, that we haven't seen him really be able to come back and do a substantially better, more compelling performance and mount a more compelling campaign since then. Yeah.
And see, for me, in the lead up to the debate, I was thinking that, it was a bad, like, Biden in general was a bad choice. But for me, like with Michael, it wasn't as much about age. It was in many ways about policy. Here was a guy who was struggling with the young vote, so he bans TikTok. What the fuck? This is a guy who desperately needs to win Michigan that has a massive Arabic population. So he gives approves more money to Benjamin Netanyahu. In some cases, even like bypassing Congress. Like, what the fuck, dude? You trying to lose? This is a guy that really needs to strengthen his base, who really care about, decent policy for immigrants. So he passes an executive order that limits the amount of asylum seekers that are allowed to enter the country. Like, but I was thinking like, this is not the best choice, but I wasn't, but I was mostly resigned that like this is our guy right now. Like, this is our only chance of beating Trump. Like, I was resigned and I was like, look, I don't like the guy. He sucks, but like, we have to beat Trump. And those are some sentiments that I echoed during our episode about Project 2025. But then that debate happened and I was like, oh shit. Not only is it going to be an uphill battle to win, it is going to be like an uphill battle against like a fucking metal castle at this point in order to win, because like the concerns about his age were already there, and he didn't just need to do okay in that debate. He needed to fucking blow it out of the water. because his numbers were already were already like pretty low. And not only did he not blow it out of the fucking water, not only did he not do just okay, as you said, that was the worst debate that you've seen in your whole life. And I was a political science major. I've actually watched a lot of those debates that happened before I was alive, that you might have seen, and I felt the exact same way. Like I went back and like I've seen I saw the debate between Nixon and Kennedy. Like I've watched and kind of broken down debates going all the way back there. But god damn, that was just colossally disturbing to watch. Like I thought, this is elder abuse, the fact that this guy is even here. And then and then to Michael's point, since then he hasn't really done a lot to kind of address those concerns. Like Joe Biden basically came out and was like, "Oh, well, we'll give him a better bedtime." It's like, what? What? Like, yeah, we'll make sure that he's not out past 8. I'm like, that's not helping. Like, we want him to seem younger, but not that young. Not so young that he has a fucking curfew. Like, so that's kind of where I was standing in terms of that.
I was seeing Gerry with a lot of thoughts flying.
Yeah, sorry. So
I do want to hold some space for Gerry, because I think
of course.
Yeah, it seemed like you had some disagreements on that.
Yeah, no, a lot to unpack for sure.
Plenty.
So, Michael, you said you started talking about you didn't see anything after that debate that would have helped his cause, or.
I mean, I saw some attempts, some interviews.
Yeah.
Some speeches,
and that speech that he gave like immediately after the debate, like he was a little bit more on his game. So like that definitely helped.
Sure.
So okay, so we agree there. That's what I saw. See, again, I sat there just like you guys went, "Oh my God, what's going on here?" There's a certain major breakdown going on here, and can he recover from this? And I think to a certain degree he did recover from this with the next several appearances that he made. He was more on fire, and I get that he was reading off a teleprompter, and he knew that the pressure was on, so he was coming out with the the malarkey thing, and hey folks, listen, and and yelling and all of that. It was a definite different guy that was in front of a crowd the next day. And then with the recent events in Pennsylvania with Trump, he came out, I think, on 3 occasions, immediately denouncing and speaking and being presidential and coming out of the Oval Office. And yeah, he's going to make gaffes. He's 82 years old. He's going to make gaffes. I'm 62 years old, and I make gaffes every 5 minutes.
Sure.
Granted, I'm not running for president. I'm not running.
That's what I was going to say.
I get that. But you take that into account. I don't know. I kind of think of it as this is a long campaign, right? It's a long process, and thinking of it in terms of to use education. Nathan, here, when you take all of these tests, we're going to throw out the high score and the low score, and we're going to do the average in the middle and come out with something, right? So it's kind of just how I'm thinking. I'm not going to let the one debate even think that this guy should be out the door. I'm willing to say, let's see where we can go from here. And there's certainly a leash that a lot of people put on him. Some people put no leash on him. They just said, let's, after that debate, he shouldn't be running. But I certainly think he has come out. I told somebody in a spirited conversation, they had said they accused me of saying he hit a home run in his appearances after the debate, and I said, well, he didn't hit it over the wall, but he did hit an inside the park home run, which is a little bit different, takes a little bit longer to do. But and again, I'm thinking, how is he going to recover from this? What's he going to say? What's he going to stand up and say? Obviously, he's saying, "Look, I'm staying in here, folks. This is the campaign, and I'm gonna run." And I think he said, unless God himself comes down and tells him to get out, he's going to stay in, right?
Sure.
So that's what I wanted to see how
Yeah.
he handled himself after that. And I thought he did and had been doing fairly well. And I also take into consideration the people he has around him. That, yeah, he's signing things. I don't like half or more of his policies. We disagree. I agree with you guys on the disagreement with his policies.
Yeah.
But again, look at the other option here.
Sure, totally.
So I say it again. If not Biden, who? We're 16 weeks away here as we speak.
Two things real fast. I think like we should definitely get to the question, to your point about the people around him, about what a Biden administration would look like if he is as bad as we think he is. And to your point, I think it's probably not. I think it's probably significantly better than the Trump administration.
Yeah.
But we can talk about that. I think the thing that I have continue to see is like, yeah, they're the gaffes. To your point, Gerry, like, okay, referring to Kamala, but calling her Vice President Trump, a gaffe. I think that's like sucks, but it's not the end of the world. Calling the president of Ukraine President Putin, that's worse.
Yeah.
But again, not the end of the world. And I really don't think I've seen people make the meal out of those kinds of mistakes that they could have. The things that worry me are like, he is not making the case very well against Trump. He is not making the points land against Trump. He is talking about like NATO and all that shit and not really making the case against Trump. And importantly, not really like we're continuing to see the same inability to complete coherent, effective sentences that we saw sort of during some of the worst points of the debate. Like thinking of like some of the interviews afterwards, he not only is consistently interrupting himself, which is something that he is apt to do anyway, but just is barely able to land the plane on individual thoughts in a row versus like just after the debate for like 10 minutes, I watched his debate against Paul Ryan, right?
Paul Ryan, yeah.
Paul Ryan.
The one that I always have creative ways of summing that up.
And like there were plenty of things that were problems with that debate, but you had someone there. And like people keep referring like, he's got a stutter and sometimes he interrupts himself and that's just Biden. And like, but you compare Biden to Biden and like, that's not just Biden. That is, this guy is different. And, my most worry, the thing that worries me most is I am not seeing him effectively land points against Trump. And Trump is not even spending money right now. Like he is on his heels, like hanging out, letting Biden self-destruct. And that's what worries me most.
Yeah. One of the things that you keep hearing kind of internally and you keep kind of seeing for yourself is that he has good days and he has bad days. And that takes me back to when I was watching my grandmother die of dementia. Now, maybe Biden has dementia, maybe he doesn't. I'm seeing a lot of things that remind me of my grandmother from him. But like to Michael's point, and actually kind of going off something that you said, Gerry, some of his appearance haven't necessarily have like kind of been in the same ballpark. But the issue is, for the debate, like I said, he had to knock that shit out of the park. He had to,
and for the rest of the campaign, not just for the debate. He's got to this is a hard fucking campaign. We are going to win or lose by tens of thousands of votes, and being off 1/10% is not going to cut it.
Yeah. So what that means is that Biden needed to nail that debate. He didn't. It was a colossal, it was a colossal disaster. But what that then meant is that if there was any chance that he was going to stay in the race and not be a liability, all of those subsequent interviews, those needed to be home runs.
Sure.
And they just, they just weren't, to your own admission. Like that's what we needed. So, do I want to go ahead and kind of answer the question, or do you want to respond? Do you want us to give you a chance to respond to that real quick, Gerry?
No, you can go ahead, and I'm going to ask the same question.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's the right question for us to get to now, because ultimately, like, I think, we've talked through the case again. I think we've talked through the case against Biden as president. But to your point, Gerry, don't compare me against the Almighty. Compare me to the alternative. And so, what's the alternative?
So here's what I would say, and I think I might have said this in an after hours segment, but I kind of see it through as three possibilities based on three different criteria, and I think one of those criteria is going to end up being the most important. So the three criteria are legitimacy, who has the best chance of winning, and who would be my ideal in terms of policy. And so my ideal would probably be Tim Walz, who is the governor of Minnesota. And the reason for that is because he has quite possibly been the most effective governor in the entire country. Like we've talked about how amazing Michigan has been doing in terms of passing progressive policy with like a 1-seat majority in the Senate. They passed a school lunch program. They banned gay conversion therapy. I think they had some gun control regulations that they passed. Like he's been monumentally effective, and I don't remember the entire list off the top of my head, but he would be my ideal in terms of policy. In terms of who I think has the best chance of winning, I would say Gretchen Whitmer, because she is relatively unknown, which I think that is actually going to be in her favor. There is some polling data to suggest that Trump is still beating her on average. If you look at the 538 average for Gretchen Whitmer, Trump is up by 4 points. But the thing is, when you look at the fact that there is a large number of people that did not answer one or the other, I think that there's a good chance that the reason for that is specifically because she is less well known. So, they more likely to go with Trump because, like, oh yeah, I already know that guy. Also, she's governor of Michigan, which is a critical state. We don't need a president that can win the popular vote. We need a president that can win the electoral college. In terms of legitimacy, I would say, the obvious choice would be Kamala Harris because she's the vice president and she would have access to the war chest. Now, of the three of those, I think that the most likely thing that's going to happen, and the thing that I would probably be most likely to make the argument for, would be Kamala Harris. And there are lots of reasons for that. Now, to be clear, she's not my favorite person. She's not my favorite politician. I have lots of problems with her, lots of problems with her record. However, when you look at a lot of the polling data before us right now, what we find is that in many cases, the polling is fairly comparable to Joe Biden. In some cases, she does a little bit worse than Joe Biden. But in a lot of the cases where you see that she's doing worse than Joe Biden, you do kind of see the thing that I said earlier, which is that there's still a large number of people that are undecided. And I think that a huge reason for that is because she's relatively less well known. All right. She's been very much a behind the scenes vice president. And I couldn't find a specific poll that talked about, what percentage of Americans know who the hell Kamala Harris was. But I did find a poll from there was a poll from 2016 that said that only 40% of Americans knew knew the names of the vice presidential candidates, which, that it's a little different because they were both neither of them were incumbent candidates. But, even if that's even if you half that, even if you say 20% of Americans don't know who Kamala Harris is, that's still a large number of people that could potentially have their opinions swayed in the meantime. The other thing to point out, there's this one poll that I was looking at from public policy polling that found that when you look at some of the critical swing states like Michigan and Pennsylvania, right now, Pennsylvania, according to 538, that's the big threshold one. That's the threshold state. And Harris actually does a lot better in Pennsylvania than Biden does. So when you look at the polling according to this, in that poll, Biden is losing 46% to 42%. But when you replace Biden with Harris, that lead cuts in half. All right. Now, she does do worse in Michigan. However, I think I have the solution to that. Not only should she be the nominee, she should choose Gretchen Whitmer as her vice president. With Harris as the nominee, that would make things easier in Pennsylvania. And with Whitmer as the nominee, and this poll actually put forth that scenario, which, without Whitmer as the nominee, Harris is losing 46 to 41. But when you put Whitmer on that ticket, they're tied at 46%. So, I think kind of going off of what we talked about last week, not only do we need to make sure that we are considering the fact that incumbency is a problem, because last week we talked about elections overseas and how the theme was we hate incumbents, and the people that won because they used the electoral system kind of against them, or kind of against their opponents. That's what we need to do here. All right. We need to recognize that people hate incumbents, and we need to use the electoral system to our advantage, which means not only do we need to be strategic in who we might choose to replace Biden, but we also need to be strategic in who we choose as the vice president. So that's my major case.
Yeah. I think, as Gerry pointed out, the fact that we're so close, I think, makes name ID a critical hurdle for clearing the bar. To your point, Ethan, relatively less known Democrats are polling similarly to Biden and other Democrats. Not the same, but I think a Blue Labs poll that was just released recently has actually basically for relatively unknown Democrats beating Biden in swing states. And I think, to me, that indicates that ultimately we have a divided country that will vote blue or red largely, and we are arguing over a couple of points in the middle, which, one, decreases the power of polling to tell us what we should do here. But two, it means that appealing to those middle people probably matters a lot. And so as I think about it, I think generic Democrats do almost as well as known Democrats, but we really want to try to capitalize on the good stuff that we have, like name ID with Harris, and while also trying to be strategic. I think your idea of a Harris Whitmer ticket could be really interesting. I was also thinking about, you could do a Harris Newsom ticket, because Newsom is relatively known nationally and had some high profile moments with his winning against the recall vote and his debate against DeSantis. But ultimately, you don't really get anything by charming California. And so, to your point, I think that could make a huge difference being strategic with Whitmer. I think the other thing that I'm thinking about is as I think about not just the alternative, but the alternative versus Biden, is I think we've seen and are seeing the best that we're going to see from Biden. I don't imagine that there's a lot of, upside here where he's going to really turn the show around and do a great job. We have not tested and invested in Harris and or another VP candidate in a way that I think could make a difference. And ultimately it's a risk, but I think it's a risk of Biden staying the course, which is risky overall, or trying to bet on someone that may have some upside. And whether they have upside or not, I don't know. But I think there's an opportunity for upside there by making that investment. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
So with 16 weeks to go to this election, do you think we should test this risk-reward theory at this point? I mean, are you afraid? Biden said, "Hey, I'm staying in." Now, unless something changes in the next 72 hours or whatever the hell the news is reporting here, if he stays in, here's my panic. And again, Democrat panic party, right? And I'm a Democrat. My concern is that people, and this is the media. I'm gonna rank on the media here for a second. Is that all of these congressmen and women are coming out and screaming, I should, the prominent ones too, coming out and saying he should step down, leave the campaign, whatever. Are people going to? My concern is if Biden stays the course and becomes stubborn and says, I'm going to stay in this race all the way to the end. My concern is because of the media coverage now about, he can't walk, he can't talk, his policies suck, all of the things that you guys mentioned as well. Are people going to vote for him anyway, or are they going to switch to Trump? I don't see them switching to Trump. I just don't see that happening. What concerns me is they're going to stay home.
Sure.
And that's going to help Donald Trump. So, again, I hear you and everyone else talking about we should get somebody else. At least you guys have the guts to say, hey, I think it's Whitten or maybe Walz or Newsom. At least you have some ideas of things where these people that are up there talking to the news media are just saying he needs to step down because he's going to lose this. He's going to lose this we're going to lose the House. We're going to lose the Senate. We're going to lose the country. We're going to lose but I'm not hearing anything positive coming out of these folks. It's all panic and all pressure on him to drop out. This is what I want to hear. Who are they going to put up there? Who are they going to nominate come, what is it, August, when the convention is? And I'm not hearing that. And if it's a ham sandwich, I'm going to pull the lever for a ham sandwich, right?
Sure.
Because I'm not going to pull it for the other guy.
And I don't even like ham.
But that's just what I think that the media is scaring the crap out of people.
Yeah.
By saying, Pelosi's had a private meeting and now she's coming out public, and Schiff came out and Obama had a private meeting with him, and all these different people, and there was more stuff that came out today. The pressure is on, and now he's thinking about it. Before it was she can't win, and now it's like, can she win? So this is just stirring this whole panic thing up. I don't think it's going to drive people to the other side. The Trump people are going to vote for Trump, regardless. But I don't think the folks that are on the other side of that aisle are going to. They're not going to vote for Trump, but they might stay home. I've had people tell me, I'm going to stay home if it's Biden versus Trump. And I'm like, don't do that. Don't do that.
Well, my question to you, though, would be, what if it works? Like what if the calls for Biden to drop out do actually push him to drop out? Like there's a Reuters article that actually came out like 3 hours before we started recording, that does quote some sources, albeit sources that remain anonymous, but sources that are close to the situation. One of which is saying, quote, his soul searching is actually happening. I know it for a fact. He's taking it very seriously. There's a major Democratic congressional aide that straight up said it feels like it's a matter of when, not if. There are, just today, there have been new news articles that have been coming out saying that this could be an actual possibility. So my question to you would be, if these calls for him to drop out actually do work, how much might that change your calculus?
Change my calculus?
Well, I guess
in terms of what
do you mean by that?
Nathan? In terms of whether or not people should be doing it. If it does work and you're thinking, retroactively, okay, was it good that they were doing that, or was it bad that they were doing that? Would that change your opinion?
If there was a plan, you would have to convince me, right? So if all of this pressure does get to Joe Biden and he is convinced that he cannot win, and there is a plan to put somebody up there, be it Harris or Whitmer or a ham sandwich, I would like to see that. I would like to see that plan. I would be more comfortable. Again, I'm going to go in there and pull the blue lever.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. Because the alternative is dangerous.
Yeah.
And it's scary. We've lived that episode.
Yeah.
Right?
And episode 2
and
is going to be worse.
Exactly. It's going to be the revenge.
Yeah,
the revenge tour, right?
That's so true.
Revenge of the
Episode 2,
fascist.
the revenge of the revenge.
And my ass will be locked up for crap that I put on Twitter. So, if he had his way. But so to answer your question, can my mind be changed? Of course.
Yeah.
But it has to be a plan. I don't want to see him succumb to the pressure, and then all of a sudden the Democrats are like, oh shit, now what do we do? What's the plan? I hope that if they are going to convince him to drop out, that they are behind the scenes right now working and talking to somebody or talking to folks, a bunch of them, to say, okay, here's what we want to do, yada, 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 whether it be Harris. I mean, looking at the polls, you talk about 538, and I'm looking at a bunch of those polls, and Emerson College here in Boston had some polls out. And the best candidate against Trump, there's no candidate that can beat Trump, according to the polls. And by the way, polls suck. 2016, if that didn't convince you that polls suck, I don't know what would. But they have her virtually tied with him, which is where Biden is, right?
Yeah.
So that would be the best candidate. Would people go out and vote? What's the plan? We would need now for the next 16 weeks a full court press.
Yeah, for sure.
From whoever it is. So if it's going to happen, so when you invited me to be on this show, my mind was a little bit different the other way, but the pressure, I'm starting to see the pressure mount, and it's like there's a possibility that this guy may drop out.
Sure. I'm
hoping he does not, because I and maybe that's just the Democratic panic in me. But I want to see what the backup plan is. You don't quit a job and not have a job to go to, right? That's always been my way. I've always got something ready to go in the event that this should change. And that's what I hope they're doing, whether he stays or goes. That should be happening right now. And we don't know about that. Yeah. All we know about is all these people coming out and go, oh, he should drop out, he should drop out, he should drop out. And the media is saying the same thing. Even the Republicans had the balls to go privately to Nixon and say, get out, because we're going to kick you out. Privately. Sure. That was never public. Nobody basically said, other than the Democrats, they went to him. That's not happening here. We were sitting back several months ago as Democrats laughing at the Republican mess. The MAGA Republicans over here, you little Matty Gates guy there, right, that guy, and the other side of that, the Mitt Romney side, and, they were divided. They still are. And we were laughing, going, look at these idiots. They're imploding. This is great. This is good for us. We weren't doing that. We were united. Now we're not. And that scares the hell out of me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like a lot of the reporting that I've seen is that people have attempted private conversations, but it seems, at least from what I've heard, and again, this is like fourth or fifth hand at best at this point, but like from what I've heard, it seems like a lot of these communications are not either getting to Biden or they're not having the intended effect, and that seems to be why people are going public to ramp up the conversation, whether that's good or bad.
People are having private conversations with Biden and then going public saying, hey, I had a private conversation with Biden. It's not private now.
Yeah.
In terms of what you said about like Democratic unity, I really do believe that if Biden remains the candidate, we are not going to have that unity. As it stands, according to an AP poll, 2/3 of Democrats want Biden to withdraw. And according to a Hill poll, 79% of Democrats approve of Harris replacing Biden if he steps aside. And I think that there's a good chance that those that don't probably, again, she does have a little bit less name recognition than Biden, but like we are seeing that there is a huge number of Democrats right now in the country, Democratic voters, that are saying, we don't want this guy to be our guy. Like, we're very worried that this guy can't win. And you have a overwhelming majority of the Democratic Party that would be totally okay with getting behind Harris. And I think that with Biden dropping out, you're going to bring a lot of the people that maybe, like, you know, I would actually argue that you would probably bring a lot of the people that have sworn off Biden because of stuff like Gaza. You're probably going to bring them back. I actually do know people personally that have straight up said, like, I would vote for Harris. There is some reporting that behind the scenes, Harris has been a little bit less gung-ho about what's been going on in Gaza.
And importantly, she's got plausible deniability. She could come out and say, I actually disagree with this administration in a way that I couldn't say publicly when I was not the candidate, but the vice president. And so, like, she could actually, like, I think she could actually thread the needle of distancing herself from the flaws of the administration while capturing the benefit of, like, name recognition, having been vetted, and through the process, she's got no skeletons that have not been uncovered already. Like, whereas, like, if we were to put our money on a Whitmer or a Newsom or whatever, like, I could see, you know, they might seem great as a governor or gubernatorial candidate, but, like, so did Beto O'Rourke. And, like, all of a sudden he crumbled as he tried to become president. And so, like, that's a worry I have from someone like that.
I mean, Kristi Noem was considered the favorite for Trump's VP, and then people found out, oh, she killed a dog.
That, you know, you just made an excellent point, because the people that are behind 79% are behind Harris, and all of these people that are behind Harris, but she's not running on the campaign yet. So we don't know it. That's a whole different ball game, right? We're going from high school baseball to major league here, and I mean, granted, I liked her. I like her, and when she was, you know, she's a tough cookie in Congress, and I like the way she conducts herself. Absolutely, but again, it's a whole different field.
Although she did run
when
for
you
president
jump in
before. She did run for president, and the big thing that
what happened.
Well, I mean, fair in a primary.
She didn't win a primary. I mean, you know, but she did do well enough in the primary that she was, you know, that she was the vice president, that she became the vice president. Also, the other thing I would point out is to a point that Michael said earlier, we really need somebody who is able to prosecute the case against Trump, who is able to make the affirmative case for Democratic policies, not just the negative case against Republican policies, but the affirmative case. And we've seen Harris in congressional hearings. Like I said, like, you know, I probably dislike her more so than you do, Gerry. Like, I have issues with, you know, her time as a prosecutor, but you can't deny, like, when you watch some of her old hearings in Congress, she was really good at hammering people, like at hammering people with questions and pointing out inconsistencies. And that is exactly the type of thing that we need with someone with Trump. Like, I think that if you put Harris on a debate stage against Trump, I think she wipes the floor with him.
I agree. I think that. I mean, do you guys think she's sitting off on the side, kind of planning, you know, hoping, wishing?
Oh, I absolutely think she's wishing.
Not only wishing. I think there is no way that there is not work being done behind the scenes to set her up to hit the ground running if Biden decides to drop out. Like, I think it's important. I think, like, a few people have said this already. This is not an original thought, but, like, Biden cannot signal that he might drop out until he has already decided to do so.
Yeah.
Because as soon as it's maybe, then it's already, the game is already up.
Well, if you listen to the news today, he's signaling that he's going to drop out by saying, But if I could go back to Nathan, to your point on when we were talking about unity and the Democrats rather saying that he should step down. This is my biggest complaint is, if you're going to have those private conversations, you need to show unity to the party, whether you agree or you disagree. You could want him to step down, but you've got to stay with your party. In my opinion, go have those conversations with him. Don't go to the public, because the voters are now confused, or can be confused about what's going on. You got half the or whatever the number is of people saying, defending him and saying Biden should stay in. Now you got all these people running to the media and saying he should drop out. Now people don't know what the hell to do. This is what's going to keep them in their house. So that's my concern, and it's not going to stop. I mean, there's a few more that probably just came out while we were talking here that are going to, now everybody's jumping on the bandwagon. Who was the first one to test the waters, and then of course, like lemmings, they were all
we really
along.
started the idea though on this podcast.
Yeah.
You guys did. You did.
Yeah. We really
did immediately following the debate.
Yeah. We know the DNC. They listen to the show all the time.
love
They're big
it,
fans.
That was a 90-minute episode that it took me 3 hours to go through, because I had to listen to it twice and send some pretty nasty messages to you, Michael.
Well, that's what got you on the show, Jerry.
That's what got me on the show.
Yep. That's how you get on the show. Send us nasty messages.
That's not a promise.
But I'm just hoping that if I obviously don't know what's going to happen. If he decides, and only he can decide whether or not he's going to stay in the race or not, I think we all need to get back. If he stays in the race, and it comes down to November, what is it, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, whatever the election is, right? Are you gonna pull the handle?
Sure.
For him, or are you gonna stay home? And I'm not asking you what you're gonna vote on. How you're gonna vote, obviously. But what are you gonna do? And that's what I think people are gonna do. They're either gonna stay home and help Donald Trump, or they're gonna vote for the candidate. But
I think we really are fighting over this middle, though. Like, if for those people, and it's really hard for me to put myself in the shoes of someone who's undecided or leaning third party or something, but they have a choice of Donald Trump, who is actively aiming to moderate his positions and talking points in order to capture people that are on the fence. Like, he's distancing himself from Project 2025. The Republicans are all falling in line. All of a sudden, they're in favor of exceptions for life for the mother and longer term, softer positions on abortion and stuff like that. So that's one decision. Second decision is a third party, and we've got in RFK someone who continues to capture a significant portion of the vote. That will probably shake out, but there's still, 3 to 6% is average kind of third party vote that's up for grabs there. Then you have people that could go for Biden, and then you have people that are staying home. And so, like, I think like I think kind of the way you put it earlier, Jerry, was, are we willing to take the risk-reward trade-off of trying to sub someone in for Biden at this point? I think, like, based on how Biden has performed and his popularity overall, to your point as well, the votes that he's getting right now are the votes he's going to get. Like, we've got the people that are Biden voters locked in, and the question is, who can we peel off? And how can we invest in peeling those people off? And the way that we peel people off is money, being on message, prosecuting the case against Donald Trump, prosecuting the case for Democrats. And Biden is currently not able to do any of those things except money. And and so that's the big challenge that I'm struggling with right now, is I don't see any upside for sticking with Biden. I only see downside.
Shame on his campaign if they're not saying. Shame on his campaign if they're not saying, you need to go out there and call this guy out and on every lie that he tells and just pound the crap out of him. The campaign should be telling him to do that. He should also know how to do that. But obviously.
I'm sure they are.
Facts. and well, if they are and he's not, that's a problem. We don't know what's going on. But why aren't these people that are out here screaming for him to step down ripping into Donald Trump? All of a sudden, that stopped. right? We had Biden should step down. Biden should step down. Then we had an attempted assassination, and that kind of threw that off the news reel for a few days. And now we're right back to everybody saying it needs to come out. Nobody's saying that Trump's out there lying his ass off. Where did all that go? It's all about Biden. The coverage right now is Biden, Biden, and it's. I don't think that's where it belongs.
Where it belongs. Yeah.
So here's what I would argue, and this is also, I disagree with you a little bit about what you said earlier about congressional Democrats need to kind of get with the party, get with the message, because here's what I would say. I remember immediately after the debate, after Michael and I recorded, that was when I finally started to look at some of the post-debate coverage, and I saw this interview with Newsom that was like on the floor right after the debate, and it seriously sounded like he was pretending like we did not just see what we saw. Like he was like, "Oh yeah, no, Biden's still great. Biden's still great. He's still the best candidate. Yeah." And it's like you're fucking gaslighting the American people at that point. Like I think that the thing that really kind of broke me during the Trump administration was specifically the fact that it didn't matter what Trump did, what Trump said, like Republicans were behind him. Like it did not matter. He could insult a Gold Star family. He could insult, John McCain for getting captured. Like he could, he could fucking assassinate an Iranian general and almost spark World War III. Like he could use a Sharpie to alter the map of a fucking hurricane. Like it didn't matter what he did. They would just defend him. And it just came across as so disingenuous, so hacky. And like in that, like while that was happening, I kind of promised myself, like, I am never going to do that for Democrats. Like I'm never going to be that type of person who just stands for them no matter what. And I think that the honesty of congressional Democrats when they see, like, yes, you did see what you saw. This was a terrible debate performance. And yes, there are legitimate concerns that he will be dropping out. Like, I see that as refreshing. I see it as basically like okay, so you do care about, like, so you are acknowledging reality. Like you are acknowledging that is what happened. And I think that the more you do that publicly, the more likely it is that Biden drops out. And for me, I think that him dropping out, I know that you don't want him to drop out, and I understand that, but I think that for me, him dropping out, I think is our best chance of winning. And I think that the best chance of him dropping out is for more Democrats to come out and publicly say, yeah, bro, you need to pass the baton, brother.
I think you're right, though, Gerry, that there's a cost. There's a cost in confusion of people that are undecided. There's a cost in seeming chaotic, especially while Republicans right now are moderating their message and being organized and seeming like the adults. I think there is a cost. I just think, I guess it's a question of whether the potential upside is worth the cost. I think that's a big question.
I agree. And Nathan, I did hear folks coming out and saying that it was it was a terrible debate, and basically what I said, you can't judge this on one very bad debate. I don't think anybody denied that, and the ones, there may have been one or two that I think I saw on a panel on one of the news stations that did exactly that, and I said exactly the same thing you did. Said, boy, this guy's just so full of shit. He's got his head up his ass. And those are, I don't listen to those folks. I listen to the one that say, look, this was bad, but this isn't necessarily the end. So anyone that came out and said after that debate he should just drop out probably thought that prior to that debate, and that just sealed it for some people. I don't know. I just don't think the one bad debate is was enough for me to call for his.
So honestly, so I'll be honest with you. I did think that, like, before the debate, I didn't think he was a good candidate. I thought that, you know, there were a lot of other candidates that would have been better than him. Like I did kind of think that, but I wasn't. But I was recognizing the fact that that probably was not going to happen. So I wasn't really, you know, I on the pod, I complained, like, you know, fuck, this is like, why did we go with this guy? But like, I knew that there was no use in calling for him to drop out because he just, there was no reason for it. But the debate kind of took me from thinking kind of passively, like, God, I wish we didn't have this guy. Like, I'm worried about his ability to win. To, like, literally, my exact words on the pod were, on my hands and knees, I am begging you to drop out.
As I have that note right here. And I said at the outset of this show, I wish I didn't have to make a choice between these two guys.
Yeah.
Right? But as of today, I do have to make a choice, and obviously, you know the choice I'm going to make. But I'm just concerned with 16 weeks to go.
So
how are they? They're going to have to ramp this sucker up fast if he decides to pull out. And I mean, next week it'll be 15 weeks to go. It's
So we talked about the, you know, European elections last week on the pod. Like, those were done in less than a month. Like, other countries don't have campaigns as long as the United States does.
Plus, the Democratic National Convention in 2020 was on August 15th or 17th. So, like, it's not crazy that we wouldn't have a nominee for a position or for our candidate until, you know.
Yeah.
Just
I really
a couple
think
months
that,
away from the election.
in my opinion, I think that it's plenty of time to, you know, choose a candidate, prosecute the case against Trump, hopefully have some debates that are much better. Which, I mean, you can't get much worse, you know, than what Biden did. But like, I don't know. I think that there is plenty of time. I would say that the time limit is why I'm more on the side of, you know, not only do I think he should drop out, I think he should do it as soon as possible so that we can get on top of getting behind that new candidate. You know, but I don't think that it's too soon.
My thought process has shifted slightly since the pressure. You know, so when we first started talking about doing the show, several days or a week or so ago, it's changed a little bit tonight. Thank you.
Yay.
I think. No. Again, if he's going to make that decision, it has to be done now.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because if he waits any long, and because we can't continue to see Democrat after Democrat after Democrat come out and say he needs to step down, he needs to step down. We need to prosecute Trump. We need to do all of those things. We need to just shift the story to beating Donald Trump. And if that means that Joe Biden is going to be stubborn and sit up and go, I am not dropping out of this race, these folks are going to have to say, well, we disagree with you, but we're with you. But you know what? The other thing, too, we haven't touched on, I honestly believe a lot of these people, Adam Schiff is one of them, they're afraid of their own little cushy jobs. Right? They're afraid they're going to lose the House or the Senate or whatever the hell, or their local. So that plays a big part of it too. But that's probably a topic for another day. But if there's a decision to be made, then by all means make it now. Let's make it in the next 2 or 3 days. And then if he comes back and says, listen, I'm staying in, then stop the BS. And just say, okay, he's going to stay in. We need to get together. We need to unify. And because what are we going to do? 4 weeks before they're going to, you know, the next 12 weeks is going to be pressure right up to the Democratic National Convention. I'm reading where they're going to try to sneak in this vote before the convention to keep him and to nominate him. We can't do this. We can't do this. I think that peace and harmony.
Yeah.
And a Democrat.
I think that for me, I agree that he should do it as soon as possible. I will stop calling for it probably when the convention happens. Like, if the convention happens and he is still the nominee, like, don't hold me to this because, you know, stuff can change. But as of right now, you know, my plan is to be like, okay, well, fuck it. I guess this is what we're doing.
Yep.
Well, the only other choice is you're going to stay home or you're going to pull the red lever.
And I sure as hell am not going to do either
And I
of
know
those.
you're not going to pull the red lever, and I hope you're not going to stay home.
Never.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
no,
please, and don't write in RFK.
Oh, fuck no. No, and the thing is, I don't actually think that RFK is going, like, usually we see third party numbers are almost always exaggerated. Like, because this long out, this far out, it does feel like, like, I mean, immediately after the debate, like, if immediately after the debate, I got a call from a pollster and they asked me who I was voting for, I might have actually said Cornel West. Like, I might have actually fucking said that. There's no way that I'd actually vote for Cornel West on election day.
Yeah.
You know, at least if he was a third party candidate and not one of the
Cornel West, the actor? No, I'm kidding.
Oh, that hurt. Oh, that hurt. Oh, my God.
To be fair, Nathan, you have such a bad barometer for who people know. Like the other people know about. You're like Tim Walz, a governor that like just the people in his state.
That's
know.
why I said he was my ideal and not, you know. I get it. Like you know, you say like, hey Nathan, who would you like right now? If there was one name that you could come up with as, you know, who would be the best candidate that you would love policy wise, like who would that be? You know, gun to my head, Tim Walz, right?
And by the way, I love Cornel West. By the way, I do know who he is. Believe it or not. So, were you guys around for this kind of reminds me of the Ross Perot year. You guys weren't around for that, were you?
We weren't.
Yeah, this is this third party, this RFK thing. This is kind of not Ross Perot was a lot more popular than RFK was, but this is the same.
Well, and he was actually on the debate stage too. Like that was another thing that had a major impact.
What killed him was the aliens landing in his yard. I think that killed his campaign.
That's not too far off from RFK, honestly.
Right. Like I said, it reminds me of the Ross Perot.
Yeah,
but he'll get a ton of votes.
Yep, for sure. Well, Gerry, thank you so much for coming on the show. I thought this was a great conversation. I've been dying to have the conversation on this exact topic and to get someone on the show that like can really make the case for Biden against him dropping out. And I think you've done a great job doing that. Any last things that you'd want to share or mention before we close out the episode? And of course, everybody go listen to It's Another Sunday podcast. Also, Gerry is in multiple films. He's a filmmaker with Paul Giamatti. He's a big deal. And so, definitely go check out Gerry's other work. Definitely It's Another Sunday podcast. It's a great listen. But anything else, Gerry, that you'd like to share with our audience before we kind of close?
Thank you so much for having me again. It was an honor, and I do appreciate you inviting me on. I know this is kind of out of the ordinary for your show. And again, I love the show. We're definitely going to have you guys back on. We'd like to invite you to come back on and talk about the podcast with our 48 countries now.
Oh wow!
That we have. And so I think when you guys were on before, we might have been around 20 countries. So we'd love to get people out there to hear your podcast. And folks can go out and find us, find your episodes out there. It's episode number 62, February the 6th. We had you guys on of February 6th of 22.
Too long ago.
Yeah,
too long.
Yeah. We gotta definitely gotta set something up. I appreciate I appreciate you again the opportunity. All I can just say is again, let's stop with the panic and the rhetoric. And I'm talking as somebody who's panicked on a whole different scale here to what folks are doing. But I just want to see us come together to beat that Donald Trump guy, right? Because that's the country is heading in a direction that I don't think anybody ever wants to relive again, or for the first time. But we need to unite, whether it's Joe Biden or somebody else, and let's do it. Let's do it now. Let's not wait. We don't. The clock is ticking, and yeah, let's just come together and let's get this thing done.
Amen. Amen. Ham and tofu sandwich 2024.
Oh God, tofu, really?
Well, for the vegetarian vote, Nathan. Jesus.
Man, fuck that.
You know the last two letters of tofu, all right?
Wow, half our audience just bailed. All right, well,
Wait, you think half of our audience is vegetarian?
dude, we've got a pretty progressive podcast. All right.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, of course not. Well, thank you so much, Jared, for being on. And thank you, dear listener, for listening to The Perspectrum. Thank you, Kayla, for editing. Thank you to all of our patrons, including Jerry, for supporting the show. And thank you so much for listening to The Perspectrum. And you'll hear from us again next week.